Hello everyone, my name's Tomatoanus, also known as the Frog's Cloaca, and today I'm going to be going over a speedrun of Starfield and how a top runner for the game, Tomatoanus, wait a second, I performed this run. Weird, that rarely happens anymore. Anyway, I'm going to be going over how I beat the game Starfield in 32 minutes, which coincidentally, something speed of light looking slow these days. As always, there's a link in the description to this run with the original audio from when I was streaming, and also a link to this run with just the game audio if you'd prefer to watch either of those. Alright, let's get started. So to start the run, I load a pre-made save to skip the 2-minute and 23-second elevator ride the game opens with. This is standard for Starfield speedruns and is something the game's speedrunning community voted on allowing, so we don't have to watch the cutscene every time we reset. I hustle my booty ahead of Lynn and Heller right out the gate, jumping over this yellow fence and walking past the stalagmite peony en route to the end of Lynn's path. Getting ahead of them like this caused them to run a little and reach their spots sooner. Couple quick things to note while I wait for Lynn to reach me and as I watch the most over-enthusiastic miner in history. This is my heart rate. I have it displayed on stream as I do speedruns, and also, this run is performed on the game's release patch for one very specific reason that I'll cover in a little bit. Once Lynn reaches me, and after she waxes poetic on how her nickname is the Lynn Bertarian, I'm going to press E to interact with her around a quarter to half second after the text of her line disappears, followed by doing it again the instant her response disappears. Doing this skips lines where she's shouting at the people around her, and I do it twice more as she walks towards an NPC named Troy. You can't do this for every line. Often it'll say the NPC is busy, and sometimes you don't want to do it because the response line they say in place of the skipped line is longer than the skipped line. Like here I skip all of Lynn's and Troy's lines except for Troy's line about juice squeezing, since the line is super short and skipping it would just lose time. I then head to pick up the cutter and I start holding right click as soon as it equips and before I sprint so that it's fully charged before I shoot it to break up the required deposits. Previously on Tomatoanus.
Can I move in with you guys? I think I want to move out. Man, I've got to find a place to live.
Yo, what's good? It's your boy, your favorite famous TikToker, Pastoni Tony Marinara. I'm using all my TikTok money to broadcast this nationwide because I am in dire need of a roommate by Christmas.
Oh, no way, I went to college with this guy.
I'm in dire need of a roommate because my last roommate moved out and I spent all my money broadcasting this ad and now I can't afford rent alone.
That kinda seems cyclical.
My roommate moved out because I annoyed him so much because I can't stop talking about Hero Wars. You know those freaking weird ads about that dude in crazy situations? Well, it's actually a real game and it's called Hero Wars.
I'm listening.
You don't have to wait until the 25th to feel the Christmas spirit because you can play Hero Wars on your phone or in browser and progress through the advent calendar, decorate your Christmas tree, unlock the free battle pass, collect new heroes, and more right now. You can play online with friends and guildmates and raid menacing bosses alongside them, or you can partake in PvP gameplay in the arena to try and get to the #1 spot on the leaderboards. Hero Wars is constantly updated with the developers listening and adding what the players want. Hero Wars has a ton of lore as well, with a brand new short called Lost Hero having just been released. Link is in the description. The developers are giving away 5 top heroes to new players along with 600 emeralds and 30,000 gold coins.
Wow, I really had to go to the bathroom.
You should take a break and be a hero. Use the link in the description or scan the QR code to start playing Hero Wars right now. Again though, all I want for Christmas is a roommate, so if you're looking for a roommate too, contact me now. Please, I need a roommate.
Man, I've got to try that game.
So after I break up the deposits, I run back to Lynn and wait for her to start saying her next line, then press E on her to skip that line before then running down the path towards Heller. I spam E on him to interact as soon as he finishes leaning on Isabel, followed by interacting with him again after he finishes responding, which skips his line where he counts down to the drill breaking through the wall. I start charging the cutter while waiting for the drill to move out of the way and only begin holding sprint after I'm able to move again. This is so that I don't drain my stamina while stuck in place and don't accidentally run out of stamina during this short running segment. So in the story right now, we're a new recruit for an interstellar mining corporation, and up here we find and interact with a capital A artifact. Touching the artifact gives us a vision that propels us through space and time, and we wake up back at base to learn that a member of a group called Constellation is on their way to collect the artifact from us. Constellation is who hired the mining corporation to look for and extract the artifact. After waking up and listening to Heller quip like he's in the MCU, it's time to make our character. Your appearance is randomized, and this run I ended up playing as Gabe from The Office. I picked the bounty hunter background for the bonuses to the boost pack, piloting, and ship missiles, and for traits I pick alien DNA and terra firma so I have more health and oxygen. After then picking the third dialogue option to get through Lynn's lines quicker, I open a door to my left, then open one across the room for later before heading back through the door I just opened. There I make my hands super skinny and grab a boost pack through a crack in a locked door, then head back to Lynn and Heller and skip a line from each of them as soon as they start talking.
Whoa.
I sprint to the airlock so that Lynn and Heller follow and equip the boost pack so I can boost around, helmet so I can breathe them airs, and bind the cutter. I hang along this left wall and skip a long line of Heller's as soon as he starts saying it, followed by one of Lynn's, and then Heller again. I tried to hug the wall while doing this so that I don't block Heller at all, since that can cause him to stop moving and not enter the airlock, losing you a ton of time. Here I sprint into the airlock door before it opens, since as soon as doors begin opening in Starfield, they're strictly visuals and you can move through them. I then boost over to a pistol that I hold E on to equip, but I don't grab any ammo since I'm only going to use it to cover slide. If you aim from behind cover and then hold R to put away your gun, and you continue to hold the aim button until your crosshair reappears, you store the coordinates of where you were standing. The next time that you then aim down sights with the gun, you get slingshotted back to those coordinates. I set up the cover slide near the airlock, then begin placing some explosive barrels down in a specific spot for my master plan that I'll enact soon. Our contact from Constellation, that group I mentioned earlier, is just now arriving. The contact's name is Barrett, and after landing, he and Lynn meet in a specific spot and have a conversation, so right now I'm pushing Lynn to get to her mark slightly sooner. You have to use an item for this though, you can't push her with your body. Inside Barrett's ship, I immediately loot a pharma kit on the wall in hopes of getting a drug called AMP, but unfortunately in this run it contains something called Synapse Alpha. I then push Barrett with the barrel all the way down his ramp, then aim down sights to trigger the cover slide and get back to the airlock. There I go inside, set up another cover slide in the airlock, and I'll ride the elevator back down into the mine and immediately back up to skip all of Lynn and Barrett's dialogue. While I do that, the reason I check the kit in Barrett's ship for AMP is that for 2 minutes, it increases your move speed by 35% and doubles your jump height, so naturally, it's handy in the speedrun. Synapse Alpha, on the other hand, can suck my left nut. I triggered the cover slide to get back to the airlock quickly, then set up another before heading outside. As soon as I enter Barrett's dialogue range, I trigger the cover slide I just set up and exit out of his dialogue to skip the rest of it, then head back inside to do the same loop once more. This time, going down into the mine isn't to skip any dialogue, but rather to skip a ship full of pirates flying in and landing. In order to progress this mission and leave this planet, I need to defeat the pirates, which is exactly what the master plan of laying out those barrels is for. I place them all just outside of where the pirate ship lands, and my goal is to blow the barrels up with the cutter to quickly kill all the pirates. I charge the cutter before exiting so that it's fully torqued and deals more damage in case I need to use it on pirates directly, which good thing I did since the pirates did what I would have at Normandy and stayed in their ship. So much for that master plan. I check all the bodies for AMP and a rescue axe. Unfortunately, no AMP spawned, but the rescue axe is guaranteed to spawn. The rescue axe is required for the most important glitch in the run, zips, which I'll be getting to soon. So pretty much, Barrett was followed here by the pirates, and here he's leaning back to start every sentence as he tells us how we've got to head to New Atlantis to meet the rest of Constellation and hand over the artifact. He gives us his ship along with a watch that doesn't tell time and sends us on our way. Also, I hope you weren't too invested in cover slides, because unfortunately that last one I did after exiting the mine the second time is the last one I'll be doing in the entire run. Due to how cover slides and coordinates work, there aren't any areas where they've been discovered to be useful later on. None of our objectives are near coordinates where we could set up a cover slide for. They're really only useful when we need to quickly return to a location we've recently visited, and there isn't anywhere else in the run where we run to and fro in one location like we did here. Here I boost up to the cockpit and bind the rescue axe while waiting for the door to open, so now I have both the rescue axe and cutter bound. After taking off into orbit, it's time for the ship tutorial. Right away, you'll see I take 4 points out of engine and shield in the bottom left and put 3 of them into laser, as well as pressing E on the planet to change it to be my current target. The targeting of the planet isn't because I'm Galactus or anything. If I were, I would have snapped by now. It's because it helps manipulate some enemies in a moment so that they don't fly away when I fight them. To start the tutorial, Vasco the robot tells us to put a point into all the systems, so I wait for him to finish his line, then put my final point into the grav drive and dismiss the tutorial pop-up when it appears.
Or, if you're already an experienced pilot, just power up all the systems, and we'll be on our way.
I then look to the top left corner and wait for the mission to update. As soon as it does, I remove the points from shield and grav drive and put them into ballistics and missiles to increase damage output. I'm now waiting for an enemy ship to spawn, and as soon as it does, I'll press E to switch it to be my active target, and I wait half a second or so before firing on it. You have to loot the ship's wreckage after destroying it to progress the mission, and whenever I started shooting at it right away, the ship tended to boost away from me, making it impossible to loot right after destroying and losing me over 20 seconds. I then have to wait around 30 seconds before the next 2 ships I have to kill spawn in, and I'll wait until the first one shoots at me before I fire back, since that helps make sure they don't boost away and I can kill them quicker. While I wait, I'd just like to say, as always, that I hope you're all doing well, and if you're not, I want to remind you that no feeling is final and there is a tomorrow. You are not defined by how you feel right now, and this moment will pass. You'll eventually be able to look back at where you're at and say that it's simply where you were and not who you were, because again, you are not defined by those feelings. There is so much more to you as an individual than that. Just please keep that in mind, and that there is a tomorrow and no feeling is final. Back to the run. After destroying both ships, I get out of my seat and wait until the get up animation finishes, then travel to a nearby planet named Crete. Traveling when you're fully standing saves around a second compared to sitting, since you skip a traveling animation. I then stand up again and travel down to the landing point as soon as the standing animation begins. If you then travel to the landing point again as soon as you load back in, then you fully skip the landing animation and start outside your ship on the planet's surface. This is called a landing animation skip, and I'm going to do it every time I land anywhere. It's important to note that this only applies to landing, while the fully standing thing I covered just before it only applies to traveling between locations. The only downside to the landing animation skip is that it bugs out the game and your HUD is missing. You can still press F to pull up the scanner to see your HUD and whatnot, but you're unable to interact with things like doors unless you save and load to get your HUD back. So the reason I'm on Crete is to progress the quest one small step by killing the captain of the pirates from earlier, Brogan. I boost up to the roof, push an explosive barrel near him, and blow it up along with another nearby barrel to take out Brogan before he has time to tell his sidekicks to pull up a video of a gorilla doing DMT. I then immediately fast travel to the Alpha Centauri solar system, where I'll fully get up from the pilot seat before doing the landing animation skip. You have to wait to be scanned for contraband before you can land at New Atlantis, and if you're fully standing when you do the landing animation skip, then you have your HUD when you land. It's only because we have to wait anyway before landing that we do this. Normally it's faster to just land immediately after beginning the standing animation and saving and loading when you're on the planet. After landing is when I'm then going to perform the first zip. If you look in the very bottom left corner, you'll see that the timer has a plugin that reads what your in-game speed is. If you're in third person with a melee weapon out, then jump and hold forward while blocking. When you land, you zip forward a little bit. If you're the correct distance from a wall when you land, and you pause the game when you land, and your speed value reads something between around 1.4 to 1.9, you can make a quick save and load it to clip through the wall. Similarly, if you're able to pause when you land just as the zip is beginning and your speed value reads in the 200s, you can make a hard save and load it to clip through the wall as well. This is all about having the proper timing to your pause and being the correct distance from the wall. You can tell if you're correctly spaced from the wall and if the zip is likely to clip you through by if you see the out of bounds area for a frame or two after you make the save but before you load. We refer to this out of bounds frame as a blip, not this blip. So when I'm going for zips, you should be looking for 2 things. First, watch the speedometer to see what my speed is at when I pause. If it's between 1.4 to 1.9, I'll make a quick save, and if it's in the 200s, I'll make a hard save. The second thing to look for is the blip. If you see both the speed in the correct range and the blip, then the zip should work. There's some speed values in the range that seem to be exceptions to the rule, but generally that's how it works. Zips are what the rescue axe is for. You can technically do it with any melee weapon, but the rescue axe is the first melee weapon we encounter in the run, and also the only one along the route before we start zipping. When I land in New Atlantis, I'm going to perform a zip on a ramp pretty much right away to get out of bounds. Side note, did you know that Merriam-Webster defines the phrase "in a little bit" as being 13 minutes and 5 seconds long? Because remember 13 minutes and 5 seconds ago when I said this run is performed on the game's release patch for one very specific reason that I'll cover in a little bit? This run is performed on the game's release patch for one very specific reason that I'll cover in a little bit. On the release patch of Starfield, the vendors in this area have their vendor chests under the map. I'm going to zip out of bounds to access the Ship Services Vendor's chest and steal 72,000 credits. This is a pretty popular exploit, but when it was making the rounds around the time of the game's release, most people demonstrated getting out of bounds with a glitch speedrunners refer to as a slip. Slips are similar to zips, but zips are more powerful, albeit more difficult. Only a couple speedrunners like myself and the world record holder Harc do a zip here instead of a slip, because it requires less running and is considerably faster. Doing a zip here is a pretty big run killer though, due to how difficult zips can be at times. Anyway, Bethesda learned about this vendor chest exploit and in a patch changed the location of the vendor chest to be super high in the air or something. At least that's what I've been told. Can't have people cheating in a single player game where their decisions are entirely their own and have zero impact on anything other than their own enjoyment of the game. We all have to play fair. Now again, watch the speed when I pause and watch for the blip after I save. On the first attempt here, I end up pausing at a speed of 1.57 and you can clearly see a blip, which means it should work. The last important thing to look for though is what your speed changes to while you're loading the save you make. If you've done everything right and then you see the speed jump to the 200s, then the zip is a success, but as you can see here, my speed doesn't hit 200 during the load, so it was a failed zip. Watch the speed again during this attempt though to see whether it hits 200 while loading. Keep in mind that you have to pay attention and keep track of all three things while running: your speed when you pause, whether you see a blip, and your speed while loading. It was honestly a bit overwhelming at first when learning the run, but once you get a hang of it and a hang of the timing on the zips, they're not horrendous, just kinda bad. Now that my wallet weighs around the same amount as 72,000 credits, I'm heading to another vendor chest that I'm going to steal some ammo and resources from, specifically shotgun shells, argon, metabolic agent, toxin, and tetrafluorides. The shells are for a fight near the end of the run, and the resources are so that I can research and craft amp soon. I'm then going to make my way to the lodge, which is Constellation's HQ, boosting all along the way. Something I've neglected to mention so far, but is one of the most important aspects of speedrunning this game, is the button speedrunners use to boost, or rather, the button we don't use to boost. Boosting by default is bound to space, but if you bind it to any other key, then for some reason, your boosts are faster. You can have two hotkeys for each action in the game, so I have boosting bound to space and left alt. I use left alt to boost pretty much every time, save for 2 or 3 moments later in the run where I'm boosting more for height rather than speed. In those cases, it's better to boost with space. In addition to generally boosting whenever I have enough boost to do one, I'm trying to time them for moments where I'll be in the air longest, like jumping off the top of stairs and terrain. That way I get more air time and travel at the boosted speed slightly longer. I'm now arriving at the lodge, which again is Constellation's HQ, and after holding up the watch that doesn't tell time to the lodge's door, we're granted access and get to meet the rest of the gang.
Messaged the other members of Constellation. Captain, everyone.
Off-brand Amelia Clark grills us on why we're here and Barrett isn't, and we fill her in on the pirate attack and that Barrett asked us to deliver the artifact. After some snide comments from a dude voiced by Quark from Star Trek, we're asked what happened when we touched the artifact, and when our story lines up with Barrett's experience, a meeting begins, but I fast travel to pass some time and skip some of it. Pretty much right now, I'm trying to progress and finish the quest one small step as quickly as possible. It's the first of 19 main story missions, and I need to complete it in order to travel to other solar systems, which will completely open up the game in speedrun. I re-enter the lodge to progress some bickering between Quark and Cisco from CW's The Flash, grab a magazine to slightly decrease fall damage, and fast travel again to skip more of the meeting. When I re-enter the lodge, I have to place the artifact on a thing in the middle of the room, and I then fast travel again to skip the remainder of the meeting. When I enter the lodge once more, I run up near off-brand Amelia Clark to hit a trigger and back away before she can start talking to me, so I'm closer to a door that unlocks after the dialogue. You have to be sure to not walk too close to her or you're thrown straight into dialogue. This completes one small step, and I run into the basement to research Performance Enhancement 1 using the resources I grabbed, which lets me then craft amp in the nearby pharmaceutical lab with the remaining resources. I hold D while selecting the amp so that the quantity slider moves right while the menu is pulling up. I then immediately bind the amp, level up persuasion for a speech check later, level up astrodynamics so I can grav jump farther in my ship, and fast travel to where I landed in New Atlantis. Reminder, amp increases your move speed by 35% and doubles your jump height for 2 minutes. At the landing pad, I talk to a dude who wears his headphones weird and has a 72,000 credit sized hole in his pocket and purchase a better ship from him. I then choose to modify the ship and add one more laser weapon to it, 2 more fuel tanks, and swap out the cockpit for a different one. The menuing here is inconsistent and sometimes you start in a different tab, which is why I kinda fumble the cockpit installation for a moment. These modifications give me more damage in combat, more fuel so I can grav jump to farther solar systems, and a faster standing up animation when I get out of my seat. I just fast traveled to the Cheyenne system where I fully get out of my seat and fast travel to the Arcturus system. Fully standing up before grav jump skips the grav jump animation. I'm making my way to the Hyla system where I'll fully stand up again and travel to the planet Hyla 2, since fully standing up skips the traveling animation. Important to note that the traveling animation and the grav jump animation are different, it just so happens that standing skips both of them. The reason I'm traveling to Hyla 2 is that I'm going to be performing an enormous sequence break there, skipping to the 12th quest of the game, Unity. I use visual cues on the planet's surface to land in a very specific spot so that I then land as close to the sequence break as possible and minimize the amount of running I have to do. After doing the landing animation skip, I'm going to pop an amp so I run faster, quickly build an outpost and move it as far away as I can, which ends up being around 250 meters, and fast travel to it to save on running. So as part of Unity, the quest I'm skipping to, you have to go to Hyla 2 and solve a puzzle, but that puzzle and location are always loaded in and active. It's just that they're not marked on your map until you get to that point in the story. Discovering the puzzle early gives you the Unity quest and skips a lot of the game. And you know what? I would applaud Bethesda here for allowing you to sequence break the game by going somewhere you know to go to early, similar to how you can find Liam Neeson early in Fallout 3 if you go straight to Vault 112 in Smith Casey's garage. I would applaud them if it weren't for the fact that doing this kinda breaks the game and major plot beats between then and now are still assumed to have happened, but more on that in a moment. This island up ahead is where I'm headed, and as I cross the water here, I try to boost just before landing in the water. Like, kinda time it out so I boost just as my legs touch the water. This causes you to kinda glide across the water for a moment like a slippery Jesus, and as soon as I fall into the water, I jump out of it and do it again. Once I make it to the island, I'll run up to the puzzle and discover the quest Unity, then make a quick save and load it so I have my HUD back and can interact with the puzzle. The puzzle itself has you interact with controls to move around a beam of light, and you need to move it so that it's shining on the stinger of a Scorpion constellation. Keep in mind that you just need to walk up to the puzzle to be given the Unity quest, and when you're given it, the quest objective mentions the Scorpion Sting constellation, so it's not out of the question that someone could just happen upon this while casually exploring, accidentally solve the puzzle, and accidentally sequence break the game. Solving the puzzle tells you to go to the Aborum Prime system, and once here, you meet someone called the Hunter, but as the dialogue indicates, you're supposed to have already met him at this point in the story. I mashed through the dialogue here, then board his ship to talk to Daft Punk for a bit and progress the quest called In Their Footsteps. While I do that, spoiler alert for a big moment that happens halfway through the game. Mute until this picture of Todd goes away to avoid them. At this point in the story, this Hunter guy is supposed to have attacked Constellation, killed a member of the group, and let you live. He's with another Starborn whose identity is whichever member of Constellation he killed in the playthrough. Because of the sequence break, none of this happened, but the game still treats it like it all did. When the emissary's identity is revealed here, it's supposed to be a shocking twist moment when you see the face of your dead ally, but because no one was killed, the game uses a placeholder NPC instead, but the dialogue still acts like it's someone you know. Also, side note, yes, the placeholder NPC does look a lot like Mateo, but it is in fact a placeholder NPC and not Mateo. So because the sequence break is just sitting there on Hyla 2 for you to discover, you can be exploring casually, happen upon that area, be given the quest, and accidentally solve the puzzle thanks to the context clue of the objective mentioning the Scorpion Sting. This would just leave you wondering why people are talking about an attack on Constellation and why the fuck there's dialogue options for the emissary's identity being a cruel trick. Of course, this is all operating in hypothetical, and I'm not sure if anyone actually did this during a casual playthrough, but the fact that this is all possible is just mind-boggling to me. So now that I've talked to and met the Starborn, I fast traveled back to the lodge where I'm going to speak to Vlad twice to progress the mission Final Glimpses. I pop an amp after entering the lodge so that it's timed out to end at a specific time. More on why that's important when we get closer to the amp duration ending. Because of the whole sequence break thing, we also never have to complete the mission Missed Beyond Measure because there's no one to miss. That should make sense if you stuck around for the spoilers. Also, fun fact, sometimes during this part, Quark from Star Trek bugs out and is super low in his chair. It always made me laugh because he looks like a baby with an adult head. One time though, he was actually all the way down under the ground. Right now, I've got two main missions going on, Unearthed and Final Glimpses. Both missions are kind of two-parters. The first part of Unearthed has you going to Luna, Earth's moon, and initiating an audio recording that you have to fully listen to before you can do the second part of Unearthed. This is what I'm doing right now. I'm landing animation skipping on Luna, then I'll boost to the roof where the audio recording is, quick save quick load to be able to interact, then activate the recording and fast travel to one of Final Glimpses' objectives. Final Glimpses has you investigate two separate locations, one that's randomly chosen and the other is always the same and ties into a quest called Entangled. Because we speedrunners use a pre-made save for runs, this randomly chosen location is always the same and is where I'm going right now to knock out while the audio from Unearthed plays out. It's all about being optimal with the routing so that we're accomplishing tasks instead of just standing around and waiting for the full audio recording to play. Here on Kindy, I landing animation skip and will then boost over a hill and drop down into a cave, quick save quick loading as I fall so that I can interact with things. This is because there's an artifact in the cave and I'm here to collect it for the mission. These missions right now are kinda all about collecting a few artifacts. After I collect the artifact in this cave, I'm going to come back outside, use the scanner to fast travel to my ship, then fast travel back to Earth and land at NASA. Spoiler warning again, this time for what the game's building to and what the conceit of the game's ending is, this one won't be long, I promise. Artifacts are fragments of something called the Armillary, which is a device that allows passage to the Unity. The Unity is the center of the universe, and when you enter it, you leave your current universe behind and emerge as a Starborn. Parallel universes are a thing, and New Game Plus is you entering a new universe. So right now, we're going around and collecting artifacts to build the Armillary and make it to the Unity. While I was boosting through the cave, I accomplished the goal of boosting 10 times while in combat, meaning that I can now level up my boost pack skill. I'm going to do this while I'm performing the landing animation skip on Earth. The point in the run at which you complete this boost pack goal varies run to run, and honestly, this is really late in the run to get it. You're typically able to get some boosts in and potentially level it up while you're on Hyla 2 and boosting past some fauna, but in this run, I didn't end up passing by any hostile fauna there. Now arriving on Earth, we're here to collect another artifact. We first have to get inside the NASA facility via elevator though, with the elevator requiring power. I'm going to grab a power cell off the ground for the elevator when I hop over to the launch tower up here, since you can pick up objects while your HUD is missing as long as you're in the scanner. It's just things like opening doors and pressing buttons that you can't do while your HUD is missing. The place where I have to insert the power cell is behind a locked door that only unlocks after the audio recording ends. I'm going to stand directly in front of the door, then quick save quick load the instant the mission updates after the audio recording ends, then open the door and power up the elevator. I get out my rescue axe while waiting because zips are about to make a comeback in a big way, and I just know you've all been waiting in anticipation for more zips. It's what the kids are clamoring for these days. In the top right corner, you can see my amp just wore off, which is great timing since we do not want to be on amp when attempting to zip. Remember, amp doubles your jump height, which really throws off the timing of zips. Again, the speed to look for in the bottom left corner is between 1.4 to 1.9 or in the 200s. With this zip here, it's easy to fall back in bounds after clipping through, so I mash to pause again as I load in and go straight into photo mode. This allows the game to fully load in while frozen, so that I can then input boosts immediately and get onto solid ground out of bounds instead of not being able to boost during the fade in. I begin making my way across the level out of bounds, boosting to cross a few gaps and showing off a mystery floating object that sometimes appeared. I don't know what it was. I never went to check while streaming, and when making this video, I went to look for it and it wasn't there. At the end of this runway, I jump and boost to immediately carry forward with momentum, then fall a big height so my tummy goes fuzzy, and boost into the hallway down here. I'll interact with the computer around the corner ahead and read a specific log to progress a quest so that I can then get the artifact here at NASA. The log pretty much reveals secrets tying NASA's discovery of faster than light travel to the artifact. After grabbing a key for a door and pressing a button to release the artifact, I do a boost with space to get enough height to mantle up a ledge, which is low-key the moment of the run that made me clench my ass the most. I then boost down this hallway and enter a big experiment room to grab the artifact. After grabbing it, I want to leave NASA, and the fastest way to do so is by zipping out of bounds and COCing. COC stands for center on cell and is pretty much what happens when you fall out of bounds. You eventually hit an invisible plane that warps you back to a predetermined point in the area, with the COC point at NASA being the elevator I entered in. Outside, I then boost down to Daft Punk who are waiting to talk to me. The dialogue choices are pretty important here. They give me the ultimatum of picking between the two of them, and it's fastest to say that I don't want to be friends with either of them since that avoids extra dialogue later. They don't respect my personal choices and the boundaries I set though, and tell me to my face that they're gonna team up to kill me later. Believe it or not, being done here doesn't complete the Unearthed mission because the final objective of Unearthed is to complete the mission Final Glimpses. It literally says in your mission objectives that you have to complete a different mission for this mission to complete. After deciding I'm going to change my rating for random access memories from a 5 to a 4.5 on Rate Your Music, I fast travel to the Freya system. There I scan the planet Freya 3 to discover the Nishina research station and landing animation skip my way down. Earlier I mentioned that both Unearthed and Final Glimpses are two-parter missions, and this is where the second part of Final Glimpses takes place. Actually, sorry, that's a lie. The second part of Final Glimpses is just coming here. Arriving at Freya 3 gives you the quest Entangled and updates the Final Glimpses objective to Complete Entangled. I wish I were making this up. I talk to Ethan Hughes via Ring doorbell, then quick save quick load so I get my HUD back and can interact with the door to enter. I then do a zip right away in the airlock while waiting for Ethan to scan me so I can enter the station early. You have to complete this zip before he says that he's declaring a code yellow, because as soon as he declares that, the door we need to run through locks shut. There is a backup zip if you don't get this zip in time, but if you fail that, then you just have to talk to Ethan and wait for him to unlock the door. After avoiding Ethan's golden shower, I'll run down a hallway and get warped to an alternate timeline where I need to kill a bug thing to warp back. Entangled is 2023's Starfield's attempt at 2016's Titanfall 2's Effect and Cause mission, except instead of being able to change which timeline you're in at will like in the game from 2016, 2023's Starfield requires you to interact with predetermined nodes around the level to change timeline. After zapping the second bug to warp back faster, we talk to Ethan real quick to assure him we don't know what's going on either, and he'll then unlock the next door for us. I'll press my face against the door to phase through it the instant it opens, and then I'll immediately try to zip out of bounds in the next room. If you don't get it first try, you get thrown into dialogue with Raphael, the sole survivor of the research station in the other timeline, which loses you around 6 seconds. After zipping out, I'm then going to COC again, but instead I'm going to use it to upwarp. Like I mentioned earlier, when you COC, you get warped to a predetermined COC point in the area, unless directly above you is a part of the level where you can stand on solid ground, then you get upwarped to that location. I'll do that after zipping out of bounds to upwarp next to an elevator that I'll ride deeper into the station. Once I load in, I run forward against a railing, turn around, and zip through the back of the elevator to get out of bounds again. I'll then pop an amp immediately and bypass a locked door by jumping straight to the final area where I have to hit a bunch of switches to shut down an experiment that's causing the rift in realities. Because I'll be shutting it down while in this timeline/reality, that means that Raphael will continue to be the sole survivor of the station. While I zip around and go crazy in here like a bug, running around and hitting all the switches, I want to give a big thank you to my patrons for helping make this video possible. Supporting the channel monetarily is entirely unnecessary, yet you all choose to do it anyway, and I cannot thank you enough for your support. If you're interested in helping out, then you can for just $3 a month, which also gives you perks like your name in these credits, access to videos early, the ability to vote on what speedruns will be covered in the future, and more. At higher tiers, you can also get access to exclusive content like monthly retrospectives where I watch an old video of mine and break down what it does and doesn't do well, taking notes in the process to make my videos better today, or exclusive monthly Q&As and monthly audio recaps. Again, supporting is entirely unnecessary, but thank you to those of you who choose to. This wouldn't be possible without you. After riding the elevator back up and speaking to Raphael, the Entangled quest is complete, meaning that the final objective of Final Glimpses is now done, and that quest is done as well, meaning that the final objective of Unearthed is now done, and that quest is done as well. On my way out, I level up ballistic weapon systems so my ship deals more damage, and level up both my shotgun and ballistic skills so I deal more damage in the final fight of the run. I then begin the process of traveling to the Masada system, with it taking 3 travels to get there. Like earlier, I fully stand up between each grav jump to skip the grav jump animation. After standing up the first time, I'll pop an amp because I'm going to be doing some running soon, so being on amp will be nice, but it's also in just over 2 minutes that I'm going to be doing my next zip. I really don't want to be on amp when attempting to zip, and I don't know if you've heard the news, but amp only lasts 2 minutes, so popping it now means it'll run out just before I zip. After I finish this last travel, I'm going to immediately take 3 points out of the grav drive and put them into my shield since I'm about to do one more ship combat, this time against Daft Punk. They heard I changed my review of their album and they're out for revenge. I press E before the dialogue so I'm already locked onto one of them, then mash through the dialogue to begin the fight. The general strategy for this fight is to take out the shields of the first Daft Punk guy, then fully take out the other one before the first guy's shields regen. Ideally, I can then fully take out the first guy before then turning my attention to take out their buddy Pete Best who tagged along. I always have a lot of trouble with this fight, namely because there's 3 enemies to keep track of, and whenever it was time to switch my target, the one I was planning on taking out next just so happened to be both behind me and traveling in the same direction I was turning, so sometimes I would have to do what felt like a 720 to track them down to shoot them. Additionally, they can deal damage to parts of your ship and either make turning slower or sometimes just leave you stranded in space for a moment and unable to turn at all. Aside from having a hard time tracking down Pete Best for a moment here and then struggling to keep up with him as he flew past me, generally this was an alright fight. When you account for taking out Pete Best though, it wasn't great, and I'd say it's probably a little below average. I'm honestly just really not good at the ship combat in this game. After the fight, I landing animation skip at the buried temple on Masada 3 where the last artifact of the game is located. This segment is pretty straightforward. I'm pretty much just running straight to the entrance of the buried temple. Since I don't have a HUD, I have my scanner up so that I can see how much boost I have so I know when I should be boosting. If you boost when you have too little boost, you don't get a full boost out of it, and I also don't want to just be sitting on a full bar of boost and not using any of it. Up here, I skip a big tough fight against some Starborn by saving up my boost and boosting a few times in a row to reach a cliff face that I'll clamber to the top of. I try and take a shortcut here by hopping off the arch to the opposite cliff, but I didn't properly manage my boost here and had to drop down and lose a few seconds by running through the intended path. My amp just wore off, which is perfect because up ahead I'm going to mantle up onto a metal awning and perform a zip to skip straight to the entrance of the buried temple proper, which is locked behind a door. This skips having to do a ton of stuff outside to open it, like fighting the Starborn. Also, you may be asking why I couldn't just come here earlier in the run like how I did with the sequence break on Hyla 2. That's because the buried temple is tied to quest stages, and if you land at it early, it says it's an ecliptic base and you can't access the interior of it. Since I'm making saves and loading as a part of attempting zips, I have my HUD back, so once I get the zip and drop in bounds, I can interact with the door to enter the temple. After a couple quick boosts inside, I'll then perform the final zip of the run. The final zip will put me out of bounds and let me skip a bunch of the interior and head straight to a mine in the back of the area where I'll enter an elevator and ride it down. I pop an amp as soon as I get out of bounds because not sure if I've mentioned it yet, but amp lets you run 35% faster and jump twice as high, which lets me traverse the area easier and faster. Pretty interesting stuff. So this upcoming elevator ride is a bit lengthy, which is a nice reprieve before the final shit show of the run. The fight against Guardian Fion and the speech check with Daft Punk. Yes, they're still alive. The elevator ride is interrupted by a glimpse into another reality where you can have a conversation with Vlad, but I'm going to walk backwards to skip it and return to the elevator. There is a potential time save during this glimpse though. You can perform a zip to get out of bounds and COC to the bottom of the elevator ride, but it's super risky since you have to get it first or second try to actually save time with it, and it's a really hard zip, so no one is really going for it in runs right now. Maybe at some point in the future it'll become more standard to go for as the run becomes more optimized over time, but for right now, hell no, screw that zip. Once I can move again, I immediately run forward and hold E on a shotgun to equip it, then sift through a bin of chems to grab a frost wolf and a hippolyta, both of which I'll take after this fight. In the fight, Guardian Fion spawns a bunch of duplicates of himself, and then he spawns invisible, and you have to find him. He spawns last though, so I look for which enemy spawns last on the minimap and head that direction. Plus I position myself to look over an area he often spawns so I can see if he pops in there, since he has a bit of a distortion effect around him and you can spot him if you look closely. After shooting him a couple times, he warps to somewhere else in the arena and you have to find him, which is where there's serious potential for time loss. I'm mostly scanning areas he often spawns and looking to see if his name and health bar pop up in any of them. After taking him out, I head to the door in the back of the arena where I have to wait for a wall to lower, but I'll jump on the wall before it's fully down to mantle up and access the door slightly early. I use the Hippolyta on Frostwolf while waiting. The Hippolyta increases persuasion chance by 20%, which is handy for the upcoming speech checks, and one of Frostwolf's bonuses is it increases your move speed by 50%, which is handy for a walking segment at the very end of the run. The speech check here is to convince Daft Punk to not fight us, and the dialogue options aren't the same every time. Instead, there's a pool of lines and a few are chosen to be presented to you each time. You can't have your big confrontation contain 3 or 4 tightly written persuasion options. Gotta prioritize a dozen mediocre lines for that replayability factor. Anyway, here's some audio from stream of me reacting to succeeding the speech check after having a run die here an hour or 2 earlier. Come on. Oh, okay. We're almost there. There are still things that can go wrong. There are still things that can go wrong. Okay? So don't panic. Don't freak out. Don't celebrate yet. Don't celebrate. Don't celebrate. I don't want to see any pogs in chat. I don't want to see any... No pogs. No pogs. No pogs allowed. Just, I want to see... I am optimistic about this. I want to see people saying they're optimistic in chat. Nothing else. Only people saying they're optimistic. Nothing else. Don't ruin this. Don't ruin it. Now that I have the final artifact, all I have to do is go to my ship and build the armillary. After then traveling to space, since I have points in my grav drive, I'll immediately warp to the Unity where I'll speak with another version of myself and walk into the Unity to end the run. To finish the run in this video, I'll leave you with the reaction of a man slowly realizing he never has to play Starfield again. Optimistic! Optimistic right now! Maybe Naughty Toaster, maybe we're no Starfield, I don't know, maybe something goes wrong, I don't know! I'm optimistic! Don't pog! Don't pog! Wait, hold! Don't pog yet, hold!
You made it. I never get the infinite. I am as much. I have seen. Do you feel like that's good? In order to be that in a part of you, do you understand?
Hold!
Walk into the gate. But that isn't. I have enjoyed speaking.
We do look like Gabe from The Office. Hold!
Universe behind a new universe.
Let's go! Woo! Woo! Fucking pog! Let's go! We did it! Yeah! Yeah! Fuck Starfield! Ah! We did it! 32! If you made it this far, thank you for bearing with me as I tried to bear with this game. I really would like to give a big thank you to Harc, the world record holder, for giving this video a proof watch and making sure it was all accurate. Harc is actually going to be performing this run for Awesome Games Done Quick 2024 this upcoming January, so be sure to check their schedule on their website to see when the run is in your time zone. Someone you know might be helping commentate that run. I'd also like to give a huge thank you to the Starfield speedrunning community as a whole for their help in the process of me learning this run. Seriously, a super nice group of people who I'm sure would love to answer any questions you have about the run or help you learn it. If you head on over to speedrun.com, use that search bar and join their Discord server from there. And speaking of Discord servers, be sure to check out the tomatoanus Discord server. It's a super inclusive and welcoming community, and you can talk about whatever there. It doesn't even have to be speedruns. In fact, we barely talk about speedruns there. But yeah, that's all for this video. This was a speedrun to beat Starfield. I've been tomatoanus, and I hope you have an above average day.